Free socks.
Test 1, 2, 3, test 1, 2, 3. We're good to go.
What is going on, snoozers? Once again, another episode of Snooze, where we bring you what we feel are the most important sports news stories from the past week or so. My name is Wack, your host, as always, and this week will be a change as we will not be having Thomas with us. He's going to be taking the next few weeks off. He'll come back whenever he's ready to. So hey, that's the way life is, you know. It's that summertime. People like to take vacations, get a little recharged. And so that's what Thomas is doing right now. And so he will be back soon. But until then, I'll still be here giving you that snooze that you so desire. So, before we do that, of course, we always got to get into our first segment, which is Sleeping On. Sleeping On is a segment where I tell you about something that you may have been sleeping on recently. Maybe it's entertainment wise, maybe it's sports wise, maybe it's life wise, whatever it may be. My sleeping on this week is going to be music related. Been one of these bands I discovered probably about 2.5 years ago, thanks to Spotify's Discover Weekly segment. So shout out to Spotify for that. This band is called Astronoid. Just a great band. I like to listen to some metal music, but I also love that kind of nice, smooth flowing, vocals, you know. I love the screaming vocals, don't get me wrong, but there's something about just nice melodic vocals that I love, and Astronoid really just combines that metal music that you know, that metal sound you may love with some nice, just smooth vocals. So definitely go check them out if you have not heard of them. I'll see if I can't put a link in the YouTube description when we put it there. So love them, definitely check them out. Moving on today, we got 3 stories, as you can see on the bottom of your screen. We're going to be covering MLB, fall sports and Jeopardy, and then the Bubba Wallace story from yesterday, and kind of just what that means in general for sports. I have some thoughts on that. So first we're going to talk about MLB. This seems like a regular topic here on Snooze, and that's because, of course, they are trying to work out a deal to play their season. But I gotta tell you, I'm not convinced that they're going to be able to, this season, and I'll tell you why. It's because I don't think they can, I just don't think, here's what I think. When this first all happened in March, obviously, you know, the MLB's Players Union and the MLB kind of office kind of got together and kind of came up with some kind of guidelines, if and when the season got brought back. I feel like the MLB, you know, I think Manfred and everyone on that party kind of, for once, you know, usually when you see this happen, the owners and the league kind of coming out on top in all the negotiations. And I think this one time, I think the Players Union got the best of the owners and Manfred and everyone else in that kind of party. And so now Manfred, being the past lawyer that he is, has been trying to come on and be like, trying to sweeten the deal for the owners and everyone, and the Players Union hasn't been having it so far. Now we see that, you know, it looked like they were close to a 60-game deal, heading into yesterday, Sunday. And then that kind of fell through. The Players Union decided not to go through on the vote. Now this could have something to do with, the uptick in coronavirus cases that we're seeing, happen, especially, you know, in the baseball land as well. I mean, you've had some players and personnel from different teams, get the coronavirus, and so that's another topic of itself, which we'll actually talk about in a second. But it really seems like, you know, that the MLB, they lost this one, and now they're trying to make up for it, and they're just not going to be able to. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in that regard. I don't think there's going to be an MLB season the way things are looking now. I mean, you're looking at right now 60 games in 66 days, which is a stretching of itself. If things don't get signed soon, you're going to lose that. So we'll see what happens, and especially with the coronavirus and the uptick in cases that are happening. Maybe they just decide to postpone it. We might not have an MLB season next year, but we'll all definitely keep you updated on that. Next, and this is, like I said, this ties into what the MLB, you know, kind of is probably might be thinking right now is, could fall sports be in jeopardy? Here's what I mean by that. Coronavirus, especially, you know, in Florida, Texas, some other states, you see more and more reported cases daily. And so with sports where you have lots of travel involved, because with MLB they're talking about doing it in one location, but that's really hasn't been discussed. I mean, obviously you can't do that in college sports or pros. You can't really, because there's so many games to play and so many time. How does that affect everything? We saw this past week that some members from the Cowboys and Texans got the coronavirus, Ezekiel Elliott being one of them. And so the thinking is, what's going to happen when someone gets coronavirus? I mean, right now you see, hey, okay, shut down for 2 weeks, and then once you're clear, you can come back. Is that going to happen with sports? Is it going to be, well, now, your star running back can't play for 2 weeks, and what kind of fallback is going to happen from that when some of your star players get the coronavirus and now you get to sit out for 1 or 2 weeks? Dr. Fauci went on, I think it was CNN, or ESPN, I forget which news outlet he kind of went on and said, hey, if the NFL is going to want to play this year, they're going to have to do it. It was CNN, I'm sorry. They're going to have to do it inside of a bubble. And that's hard enough to do, as someone like me who is, just a regular old citizen, keeping themselves in their bubble and not wanting to go out. Now you're talking about people wanting to having to go travel and play and keeping them locked up in hotels probably before games. And, that's going to open up a whole can of worms in and of itself. So, yes, you can have all the testing in the world and all the precautions in the world, but at the end of the day, people are humans. People are going to want to go out, and you can't, whereas me, I'm more of an introvert. I don't mind being locked up, nearly 24/7, but a lot of people are extroverts, and they want to go out and do stuff, and you're going to make them go a little stir crazy if you keep them, if you have them on a tight leash. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. And this even leads to the high school level. I mean, we cover Texas high school sports a little bit, and you see a lot of schools have started their summer workout programs having to shut it down for 2 weeks because players are getting COVID. And some of this, you can't necessarily blame on the schools and the coaches of those programs, because what you're finding out is some of these athletes are going and playing on 7-on-7 tournaments, and that's where they may be getting contracting the coronavirus. And so now it's like, if this is happening like this now, what's going to happen when the season starts, when they're traveling? Some schools travel, from maybe Houston to Dallas to play. What's going to happen if they get it from someone from that team? And, are they going to have to shut down they're shutting down the whole program right now. What happens if one of the players contracts it during the season? Are you going to shut down that whole team and have them forfeit 2 weeks of games? There's a whole lot of mess that, organizations like UIL and TAPS are going to have to start talking about and figuring out how they're going to manage the coronavirus situation when players get it during season, because you can't just say, well, they're not going to do it. They're not going to get it. The players are going to get coronavirus at any level. We're talking about high school, college, pros. So what are UIL? What are TAPS? What is the NCAA? What is the NFL? What rules are they going to put in place when players get coronavirus? Because it is going to happen. You're not going to be able to sit here and say, oh, well, you know what? We're going to be completely ready and everything's going to be fine. I mean, Texas has had like 15 confirmed cases at the University of Texas. LSU players just recently got it. Clemson players have gotten it. What are you going to do when that starts happening, when it's not just working out, but now you're talking about game weeks, talking about a team that's fighting for their playoff lives, a team that's, undefeated, trying to get to that playoffs for the national championship in college. A lot of things are really interesting, and with the uptick in cases that we are seeing in some states like Florida, like Texas, are we going to have to end up saying, you know what, this is not worth the trouble that it is, and cancel the fall sports? I think Governor Abbott in Texas is supposed to be making some type of an announcement today about, the uptick in cases that we are seeing in Texas. And I mean, he's been reopening everything left and right. And so is he just going to end up saying, well, hey, it's up to the school's discretion. It's up to UIL's discretion. He's already said schools are opening up, in the fall. That announcement came out last week. So I don't know if he's going to about face on that, or if he's just going to say, hey, we have to do what we have to do. Now, someone that works in the sports world, of course, I want sports to happen in the fall, but at what cost? I don't know if I want sports if it's going to mean the deaths of more people. And people are making the case like, oh, well, people have to die, if they're old or whatever, they can go on and die. But at the same time, that's still life. That's still human life, right? So, it's one of these, it's one of these, I guess catch-22s, if you will. I don't know if I'm using the right lingo, so pardon me if I'm wrong on that, but it's, I love working in the sports world. I love covering sports. But should we cover sports or should there be sports when coronavirus cases are still on the rise and don't seem to be slowing down as of yet? And if they're not slowing down now in the summer, what's that going to mean when it gets colder? Because according to the doctors and everything, the warmer it gets, the less likely you are to see cases. So I don't know what this is going to mean for fall sports yet. Obviously, we are getting closer to July, and the closer to July we get, the more answers we should see on if this means we're having sports in the fall or not. Again, Governor Abbott is talking today, and so that should really give us a good indication of what's going to happen. Our final story of today's snooze episode is going to revolve around Bubba Wallace, and not only that, but then I want to talk about what that means on a broader spectrum. So, for those that haven't heard, on Sunday, a noose was found in the garage of Bubba Wallace. For those that don't watch NASCAR or aren't familiar with it, Bubba Wallace is the only black driver in NASCAR. He was the one that kind of first came out. He was the one that came out and said, "Hey, let's do away with the Confederate flag." He pushed for it, and NASCAR was like agreed, and they banned the NASCAR from all future races going forward. So yesterday, in his garage kind of facility, garage stall, a noose was found hanging there. He didn't find it himself. It was one of his team members, because he's not allowed in there because of the coronavirus. They only let him get into the car. But the fact remains, a noose was found in his garage stall, and this is an unacceptable thing. Bubba Wallace did put out a message that I want to read about after it happened. He said, "Today's despicable act of racism and hatred leaves me incredibly saddened and serves as a painful reminder of how much further we have to go as a society and how persistent we must be in the fight against racism. Over the last several weeks, I have been overwhelmed by the support from people across the NASCAR industry, including other drivers and team members in the garage. Together, our sport has made a commitment to driving real change and championing a community that is accepting and welcoming of everyone. Nothing is more important, and we will not be deterred by the reprehensible actions of those who seek to spread hate. As my mother told me today, they are just trying to scare you. This will not break me. I will not give in, nor will I back down. I will continue to proudly stand for what I believe in." So that was Bubba Wallace's statement after those just horrendous events that happened to him yesterday, and but this really leads to a big topic at hand, and that's and first I want to talk about this. I mean, what kind of world do we live in? Like, it's 2020, people. Like, and this really all started because he was the one to push NASCAR from banning the Confederate flag from NASCAR events, which NASCAR said, "Yeah, you know what? You're right. No more Confederate flags at events." And this is a human life, people, and you're getting angry about a flag. Like, really shows where we are at in society, where this is still an issue in 2020. And for those of you that continue to say, "Oh, well, people are blowing this up out of proportion," not this story in general, but this whole issue of that there is racial equality in America. Guess what, people? It's still alive and rampant, and I think we're seeing it more and more because of the invention of social media, where we're able to find out stories across the world, across America. And you know what? I think people are finally waking up to the fact and finally saying, you know what? I have friends that are telling me these stories. I have friends that are saying this stuff. I need to believe them. I think it's way past time, and I think it speaks to one of the wider topics at hand, which is we shouldn't just stick to sports in this scenario. You know, you always see these people, you know, some people saying, hey, you know what, you know, Colin Kaepernick, stick to sports. You know, you such and such, stick to sports. That's what you do. But at the same time, these are still human beings that you know, they still have thoughts. They still have, you know, their own thoughts and ideas, and we need to listen to what they're saying, right? And, you know, so me, being the white person that I am, you know, I have no idea what someone else's life story is. I live a very privileged life, and so, you know, it's you can't just say politics and sports don't mix. They do. We can't just be the type of people that say, you know what, play ball and don't talk on anything, especially when we see stuff like this. I mean, you get people putting a noose in someone's garage that, you know, what kind of, and then you can't just say stick to sports. There's so much more going on right now in our country than sports. And yes, sports are an escape for a lot of us. Sports are a way to get out of our mundane lives and enjoy, you know, for a lot of people, you know, 2 to 4 hours of something that we've grown up watching our entire lives. But these are still human beings, and these are still human beings that some of them are treated a certain way in the sports world, and unfairly. And we just obviously we just saw that yesterday with Bubba Wallace. This is not an issue that's gone away. It's still an issue, and I support all these people, you know, that are coming up and speaking out and telling us what we need to open our eyes to, and I'm here to listen. So you know what? For those that don't want to listen, that's on them. And at the end of the day, I'm here for it. I support all these people speaking out. You know, you got the people at the University of Texas talking about the changes they want to make, and you know what? I fully support it. And so that's kind of where I'm going to leave this show. It's a little bit shorter show, I know, so we don't have, you know, obviously me and Thomas talking back and forth. So show's going to be a little bit shorter, especially if I only cover 3 stories like I am this week. But I think it's just a good, you know, good point to end the show covering this story, because you know what, sports and politics do mix right now. When we have to talk about it, I couldn't do the show and not talk about it. So if you want to follow me, you can follow me on Facebook at Joshua Slosik, on Twitter and Instagram. You can follow me at JoshWack13. You know, I'll post stuff every now and then for the show. I posted on Twitter and Facebook. Of course, you can subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's S-News. There are a few S-Newses out there. So if you're searching for it on YouTube, hopefully you're seeing it on Facebook and Twitter and just clicking on it, so then you can immediately subscribe. But until then, guys, you know, crazy time we're in right now with everything going on. So, wear your masks, stay safe out there. And until then, don't forget to keep hitting that snooze button, guys. See you later.